Hey, Webby.
What?
We're doing it again.
Doing what?
Taking everybody to Gen Con.
Okay, you guys have fun.
You coming this time too, you big angry panda bear?
How?
Because they're gonna help us.
Who's they? The listeners?
Yep. If you guys would like to help us get to Gen Con, then join us June 23rd for our live stream fundraiser. We'll be giving away prizes and just having a ball all day. There'll be exclusives that won't be available ever again after this stream.
Not to mention the cocktail wheel. That thing has gotten an overhaul. You thought last year was rough? Oh, dude, watching you guys on that video, not good. Wait till you see what is in store this year.
Webby, that's not it. We're introducing a scavenger hunt, the Distractions Media style. You can also contribute to that and send us looking for your favorite pop culture fandom.
And it all kicks off June 23rd at noon Eastern. Come join the Distractions Media crew and help us get to Gen Con so we can grow and see you guys.
The Fate of Heroes, starring Patrick, Devin, Rob, Tamara, and John as the Game Master.
A house sits quiet in the dark of late evening, the muffled sounds of a suburban neighborhood settling for the night, and the light from a porch light comes through a large window by a front door, illuminating a small living room with a couch, table, and throw rug to the right of the door, a small fireplace and 3 doorways leading to bedrooms and a bath to the left, and a small kitchen with an L of cupboards separating the rooms with a pantry door at the back straight ahead. With a loud pop and a rush of air, Leelui comes tumbling out of a portal in the wall beside. She somersaults over a couch and a coffee table, ending cross-legged on a small, patterned throw rug in the middle of a darkened living room.
Honey, I'm home. I just helped Great Uncle Trevor hide a dead body.
She sits a few more minutes, waiting for the response this announcement should elicit. But no one answers.
Huh.
Leelui jumps to her feet and skips to the kitchen, but stops as a feeling of something not quite right comes over her. She shakes her head and pulls a glass down off the shelf to fill with water. As she raises the glass to her mouth, her eyes fall on the wall calendar and she stops mid-motion. The year reads 2146.
Poop.
She has missed her intended date by about 60 years.
Poop, poop, and dragon dung.
Placing the glass gently on the counter, she pulls a crayon from her pocket and moves back towards the living room, stopping as she hears voices outside the house.
Scribbles on the outhouse wall.
She looks desperately around herself for a place to hide, forgetting she holds a crayon and an easy escape in her hand. This is Leelui, after all. Leelui jumps back into the kitchen, sliding it into the small pantry cupboard therein. She closes the frosted glass doors just as the front door opens. She peers through the clear lettering that spells pantry as 2 people enter. A slightly older, more gray-haired Zoe and a wizened, bent old man with white hair who leans on an intricately carved mahogany dragon cane.
Great-grandma, she does this, you know. She has difficulties with goodbyes.
Zoe gently lets the arm she had been holding go, and the old man leans heavier on his cane as she closes the door and flicks on the living room lights. Leelui can now see the old man appears at least 90, whilst Zoe appears at most a hard 40.
She's been gone 5 years now, and is older than you, for God's sakes. and should know better by now. Abandoning you like this is just childish and breaks her parole.
She isn't like me, or you, or anyone else for that matter. That's why I love her so much, and why she drives me so insane.
Zoe rolls her eyes and grunts before taking his arm again and leading him into the house.
Come on, kiddo. Let's get you to bed before you fall over.
Bob? Zoe helps Bob to sit down on his bed, taking his cane and leaning it against the wall between the bed and the nightstand. Kneeling, she pulls off his socks. She grins to herself and in a fit of lightheartedness tickles the bottom of his left foot. Bob pulls his foot from her hand, nearly falling over backwards onto the bed in the process. Zoe quickly stands and catches him at the shoulder, setting him right with a concerned look.
Great-Grandma, you know I'm stupidly ticklish there.
He pats her hand on his shoulder and turns to see the concerned look.
Don't look at me like that. I'm creaky, not dead.
Zoe grimaces, then attempts to smile instead as she sees his face turn to concern for her.
I know. Let's get you settled.
With care, she helps him to change into the pajamas that are laid out on the bed already. A flannel Superman onesie. She shakes her head and chuckles lightly. The boy never really did grow up. Bob's movements are slow and punctuated with several pauses for breath and energy. His mind might still be young, but his body has gone ahead by a wide margin. No extended lifespan was gifted him. He's glad of that, he thinks as he watches Zoe stow away the dirty laundry efficiently while talking quietly of the day, pausing for him to answer occasionally. He sees her continue to throw him sad glances when she thinks he is not looking. He has no desire to outlive everything he holds dear. Zoe bustles over and takes his arm, helping him to stand as she pulls back the bed covers.
Let's get you tucked in now.
He wavers slightly as she releases his arm to fluff the pillow. She quickly reaches for his arm again, afraid he may fall. He looks at her and she loosens her grip.
I'm not a child.
I know that. Humor an old woman, won't you?
Pot, meat kettle.
Zoe rolls her eyes and leans down to kiss his cheek. A cheek that not so long ago was tiny and baby soft and full of life and innocence, but now was wrinkled and bristly with Dale's stubble. She chokes back a sob, hiding it in the kiss before standing to straighten the covers over him. Bob reaches up and cups her hand in his.
All our times come, eventually.
Zoe pulls back a little in shock, her composure threatening to shatter. Bob grips her hand tightly, realizing what he has said.
Great-Grandma, it's okay. I am okay.
He sees her slowly gather herself back up, although her eyes display just how close she was to the verge. He smiles at her reassuringly, before yawning in exhaustion, giving her hand another squeeze and releasing it to drop his own down to his chest.
Of course you are. Of course.
She once again fusses with the covers as Bob's eyes close tiredly, before clicking off the bedside lamp and opening the bedroom door. Minutes pass as Leelui remains hidden before Zoe finally opens the bedroom door and quietly steps through.
Good night, dear.
She gently closes it and walks softly to the living room. She pauses with her hand on the doorknob and looks around the house, her eyes staying longest on the pictures that hang above the mantel. Briskly, she pulls the door open, turns off the living room lights, and marches out the door. Leela remains in the pantry for a few minutes after Zoe's footsteps have faded, before delicately opening the pantry and tiptoeing into the living room. She looks to Bob's room briefly before raising her crayon to the wall and with practiced care draws a portal. As she goes to activate it... Chook? Leelui stands frozen as the front door once again opens, and a bright red dragon the size of a pony pushes its way through. It stops halfway in, tilting its head as it sees Leelui. It lets out a puff of smoke and turns towards the old woman who stands behind it.
They call you Maddler in good confidence, mistress.
It slithers past Leelui with another chuckle, and opening Bob's bedroom door skitters out of sight. The old woman closes the door behind her and stands with vibrant green hair and mixed era color clashing clothes, shaking her head at the dragon. Looking at the frozen Leelui, she gives a small nod and sad smile before following the dragon and closing that door as well. The old woman, upon closing the door, moves over to the bed.
Took you long enough.
She clicks on the bedside lamp, and Bob squints up at her.
Really, woman? You were that stubborn about this?
She settles at the foot of the bed, resting the cane between her legs and leaning on it slightly. The dragon comes over and rests its head on her lap, purring roughly as she scratches its head.
Not quite. She comes back after only a few hours, her time. Just not your time.
She got emotional and overshot, doesn't she?
Something like, yes.
Her hand pauses its dragon scratching as she leans forward into her cane a bit, before rocking back and resuming the scritches. The dragon huffs a bit and resumes its purring.
She goes to that alien bar from her annual ship travels with Leelui and the others. Drink her sorrows away. But, as usual, it's wrong. She is sitting in the back, nursing some god-awful alien drink, as Damien, Leelui, Lena, Bronwyn, and herself walk in. Seeing them there, like that, sets her for a bit of a spin.
Bob sinks further into the bed a bit. He shifts again, pushing himself up on his pillow to see her better.
I miss her, you know. Her, you, I, all of the yous, and thems, and us's.
You always did have a way with words, love.
There is a brief, companionable silence between them, broken only by the dragon's leonine purring.
You're here now because this is it, isn't it? This is our goodbye.
Leelui's hand falls from the dragon's head and its purring ceases. She turns her face away. Taking a deep breath, she nods and turns back.
Yes. She couldn't get back. Not before it was too late. It broke her for a time. Now, it's time to set things right. And keep a promise I haven't made yet.
You always did make my head spin.
We certainly had our adventures, though. Drove poor Zoe right up the wall.
Remember, we took that sparkly dragon for a ride through feudal Japan? He or the Celtic fairy incident?
I think I may have been the cause of more than a few of the myths we know today. Well, and Grandpa Raspy.
You think? I know. I didn't marry you because they said I had to. I volunteered. I did it because, yeah, this is gonna sound cheesy as hell. I loved you. I loved you before I met you. I grew up on wild and crazy stories of this mad woman who jumped through time and space, who created wonders out of the air. I gobbled up books of history and myth, looking for odd references of you. Pretty sure you're behind some of the Loki stories. Heck, pretty sure you're behind most trickster stories across multiple ages and worlds.
He stops there, breathing labored. His hands are shaking slightly. Leelui leans forward worriedly. Then he speaks again.
And then one day, there you were. Myth and mischief in living color. Pouty, petulant, angry and stubborn. Shouting how you were not gonna marry Bob.
Leelui slides to the middle of the bed and takes Bob's hand in hers, smiling shortly before her face shifts to concern. Time is short, and there's still a promise, not yet made, to keep. She leans in close to him.
Leelui.
They smile at each other, holding hands and leaning in close.
Come on, dear. We have someone to see.
I am far too weak and tired to go anywhere now, Leelui.
She smiles mischievously at him.
We're already there.
The dragon chuffs, and smoke billows out from its nostrils. Around them, the room fills with mist, leaving the bed floating in the pale, calming haze. Beside them, a bed identical to Bob's shapes itself out of the mist. In it lies Zoe, greatly aged, frail, and quite clearly near her end. Leelui reaches across and takes Zoe's hand.
Hello, Zoe. As promised.
Well, much more reliable in your old age.
Zoe smiles weakly, giving Leelui's hand a light squeeze. The beds float closer to each other, and Zoe reaches across to pat Bob's cheek before taking Leelui's hand again.
Yes, well, we all must grow up sometime.
Leelui looks rather pointedly down at Bob's pajamas as she says this.
Thank you, Leelui. Everyone else is gone.
She may take her sweet time about it, but she does right in the end, Great-Grandma.
Yes.
They all fall silent. The only sounds the labored breathing of Zoe and Bob, whose breathing gently slows in sync. With a final look across to each other, their eyes close, and their breathing falls silent as well. The mist grows up around them, and Zoe's form dissipates. The mists fade entirely, and Leelui sits again in the quiet room. She folds Bob's hands across his chest, kisses his forehead, and, leaning against the cane, slowly stands. The dragon bumps his head against her hand, now no bigger than a Great Dane. Leelui picks up Bob's cane from where it leans beside the bed, and moves to the door. Leelui remains frozen in place for several minutes, desperately gripping her crayon, shaking. She can hear the soft conversation from the bedroom, but cannot make out what is being said. As the voices fall silent, Leelui finally breaks herself free and activates the portal before her, moving to step through.
Leelui.
Old Leelui stands at the bedroom door, leaning on her worn, carved mahogany dragon cane. Beside her stands the now much smaller dragon, and, gripped in her hand, the newer twin to her cane.
Everyone ages. Everyone eventually dies. Except us. We just fade. Take what time you can before they're gone.
She holds Bob's cane out to her.
You will need this eventually.
Younger Leelui cautiously moves towards her older counterpart and gingerly takes the cane from their hand. Old Leelui smiles sadly at her again, and Leelui bolts for her portal and dives through. It snaps shut with the sound of a distant gong.
She did not take things well.
She never does. She never really will.
She pats the dragon on the head and they move towards the front door when it bangs open, and a fire-breathing Zoe points an angry, accusing finger at them.
You, now you come back? He's waited five years for you to come back, after you took off, after you realized how close he was to you.
Leelui looks down at the dragon.
I will meet you outside.
The dragon slithers past Zoe, brushing the door frame to avoid her and out into the night. Leelui waits till it's gone before looking back at Zoe.
We have made many mistakes. But now, at this point, this time, everything is set. All the pieces are placed, all the roles writ. Now I just play my part.
Leelui looks over her shoulder into the bedroom, turns back, dipping her head in grief before once again looking at Zoe.
He did not die alone. He never does. And I promise, neither shall you, and never will any of the others.
Zoe steps back with a look of shock and begins to shake. Leelui moves again towards the door. As she goes past Zoe grabs her by the shoulder.
You and your damn meddling.
Leelui gently removes her hand and gives it a soft pat between her own.
No more meddling.
Leelui looks pointedly at Zoe.
And I was not the only one to be doing so. Since Jacob was freed, only set parts to play.
Zoe deflates, seeming to fall into herself and become smaller.
The worst is to outlive them, to see all you love gone, and wonder why you ever lived so long, or saw so much. I wanted better for all of them.
Leelui nods. No need to answer that. They both know all too well. Women set outside of time. The dragon hisses from outside. The women stare at each other a few moments more before Leelui drops Zoe's hand and continues out the door. She steps up onto the porch of a small cabin, parked just on the edge of the house's porch. She turns to look back.
All our times come. Eventually.
The cabin, Leelui, and the dragon all fade away. Zoe remains in the doorway, quietly weeping. The world continues forward. Time will come. Even for people like her. And Leelui. Leelui, younger Leelui, flies out of the portal, landing in a sprawl once again on the throw rug. Sobbing, she throws the crayon into the fireplace and the cane away from her, and huddles into her legs.
Hello? Leelui? Are you back?
A younger Bob comes out of his bedroom. Seeing Leelui crying on the floor, he runs over and drops down to his knees beside her. He fights the urge to pull her into his arms, knowing at this point she is not one for physical affection, and instead places a hand on her shoulder.
What happened? went wrong?
She looks at him through her tears, hesitates, and suddenly lunges to wrap her arms around his neck and pull him close. Shocked, Bob sits unmoving for several seconds before gingerly wrapping his arms around her.
Nothing. Nothing happened. Just please hold on for a while. And don't let go.
Bob tightens his grip around her, taking her weight and pulling her into his lap.
I know I am a brat sometimes and difficult and stuff. But please don't grow old anytime soon.
Bob looks down at her with a wry expression, perplexed.
I wasn't planning on it, but sure, okay. I promise.
I love you. You are my best friend.
Where is this coming from?
Leelui lifts her face from his shoulder and looks at him intensely through puffy eyes.
Just don't die, okay?
Bob looks at her, searching for some reason for this sudden turn before placing his hand on either side of her face.
I love you too, you weird goof. And I'm not going anywheres. We have too much trouble to get into yet, okay?
Leelui smiles shyly through her tears and nods.
Just hold me a while longer, please.
Sure, I can do that.
And quietly they huddle on the small throw rug, the one with the odd pattern on it, that had been an anonymous wedding/parole gift, that, if you look just right, it kind of looks like a cabin with chicken legs. And somewheres, somewhen, before time or space, floats a similar cabin, its chicken legs gently paddling in the nothingness. It emits a soft cluck, and a light, mischief-filled chuckle answers from within.
This has been a Distractions Media production. For more information, you can check out everything we do at distractionsmedia.com.